Welcome to episode 48 of BioBalance Healthcast. I'm Dr. Kathy Moppet.
And I'm Brett Newcomb. And today we're talking about the news. We get a lot of questions from our clients separately about things that people hear in the news. And there seems to be so much information out there that really isn't information. And so we thought today we would talk about three different things that have come up. We're going to focus on them in different podcasts that we'll do. The first one is about older women who are obese and the issue of hot flashes. And this is all territory with which I'm pretty unfamiliar. So Kathy's going to have to do a lot of explaining to me today. Talk to me about menopause first.
Okay, so to understand the news says that women who are obese do not get hot flashes. Now, as a clinician, I've always known that. That's something that we just know. We just don't really think it through. Why don't they get hot flashes? But today we're going to talk about why.
So at first blush, that seems like a positive.
Yeah, that seems like a positive, but really, it's not really a good sign.
Right.
Okay, so for you to understand exactly why, I have to explain what happens at menopause in a way that makes it easy to understand. So in your brain is a small, teeny tiny gland that's like the COO, it's right here, of all of the glands in your body. It puts out stimulating hormone to every other gland, and the ovary is no exception. So when we start having periods, the pituitary starts making FSH. It stimulates our ovary by putting FSH into our bloodstream. It then goes to the ovary, and the ovary responds by making estradiol. Great, that's how it's supposed to work. Estradiol then feeds back to your pituitary and shuts off the FSH, and it goes down to a low level.
And the FSH
is the hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. It's the hormone that stimulates your ovary as long as your ovary is cycling and that you're not menopausal. Menopause happens when the ovary effectively dies. You still have an ovary, but it becomes a very little streak inside of you, and it no longer acts as a gland. And it's one of the few glands that do this. And this happens in men much later and not to every man. But for us,
So men go through menopause too?
They go through andropause.
Andropause.
Yeah, we won't make you go through menopause.
Oh,
it's not that bad. It's not as bad as ours.
Yeah, well, good.
So,
but we do have hot flashes.
You can have hot flashes. If you don't have enough testosterone, you can have hot flashes.
Right.
So you can enjoy what happens to us, or not enjoy it. At least you can relate to it. But this is something that is a cycle our whole lives. But then when the ovary doesn't respond, then the pituitary puts out more FSH, and the FSH goes to the ovary, no response. So then it keeps hammering the ovary with more FSH, and there are pulses, and those pulses are hot flashes.
So it's like knocking at the door, but nobody's home.
Right, and estradiol, young women's estrogen, is the estrogen that feeds back to the pituitary and shuts it down. So there's no young women's estrogen in normal-sized people. Now we're going to talk about skinny little girls. Okay, girls that don't have very much body fat, they generally get more hot flashes, not less. So let's talk about that for a second.
Right too.
Yeah, it does, because they're so skinny. Anyway, so I'm not talking anorexia. I'm just talking about thin women. So what happens is they don't have any body fat. Body fat actually makes estrone, old lady estrogen. And old lady estrogen feeds back to the pituitary and will shut down hot flashes. But in thin women, there is no estrone. They don't have a big belly. They aren't making it in their fat. You actually make estrone in your fat.
So the chemical messenger comes from the pituitary gland, and it says, hey, let's make some of this stuff. But the gland that makes it has shut down.
Right.
So then the chemicals in the body fat send a response back to the pituitary and says, you don't need to be doing this anymore. We've got it covered.
Right, and it shuts down hot flashes if you have a lot of belly fat and if you are making a lot of estrone. Estrone also comes from the adrenal gland, and that's what kicks it off.
Okay.
But in thin women, they don't have any estradiol from their ovary, and they don't have any estrone from their adrenal, and they don't have any body fat. So their hot flashes are terrible because there's nothing feeding back to their brain to shut it off. No off switch.
Wow.
So now let's jump to women who are so proud of themselves. And, you know, I'm sure there's some of you listening that I'm so cool, I don't have hot flashes. Well, if your BMI is over 30, then that's why you don't have hot flashes. You're making old lady estrogen in your belly fat. But the reason that's not good is that estrone is produced by belly fat, and it also makes more belly fat. So the minute you hit menopause, yeah, it's turning off your hot flashes, but the cycle of gaining weight goes up drastically.
And the excess weight accelerates other medical complications.
Right.
So it is a real catch-22.
Right. Obesity is the greatest risk of breast cancer because fat creates estrone. Estrone is the estrogen or the type of estrogen that actually stimulates breast cancer growth. So you don't want to have a lot of estrone. So actually the little skinny girls have less risk. The medium girls have a little more, but you know, less risk than people with a high BMI. But the high BMI patients also have risk, but it goes up and up and up and up because their estrone increases. They also have risk of heart disease. Estrone is not good for your cholesterol. Estradiol is good for your cholesterol, but estrone is not. So that's not going to help your HDL, and it's not going to help your cholesterol come down.
So the trade-off is not worth it. The trade-off of having fewer or no hot flashes is not worth the ancillary cost of having more and more estrone.
And an estrogen is not an estrogen. I mean, because they're both estrogens does not mean they do the same thing in the body. You know that we're quite different when we're young. Our breasts are perkier, we have a waistline, we have more sexual thoughts, better lubrication of the vagina. So that's estradiol.
All of those things.
Right, but when we are post-menopause, then we have muddled thinking, we start looking older, our skin doesn't look good, instead of the opposite. We don't look good, and we have lost our waistline. We're tired. You know, a lot of these things come from estrone. So estrogen sometimes is a good thing and sometimes is a bad thing, depending on the type that it is. So in this study, they studied women who had a BMI over 30.
And BMI is body mass index?
Yes. Right. And you can figure that out. You can go online and look at a BMI index and find out what your height, weight, and what your BMI is. That's not a perfect measure, but it's pretty close.
Okay.
And it's what we go by. But these studies were done like this is news. Okay, I guess sometimes we all know things, but we don't have proof of things. But they did prove that women with bigger body masses and higher BMIs had less hot flashes. Now, however you want to take that, I'm explaining it because in the study and how it hit the press, it sounds like a better thing. It sounds like you're healthier. It just means you're not tortured quite as much.
Well, because in the common perception, I mean, everybody's heard about or had some experience with women who have hot flashes.
Right, and we're miserable.
And mood swings, and so the initial message of, hey, you know what, you can have less hot flashes, and you don't have to worry about your weight.
Because you already had that issue.
So that it's a good thing. You have to delve deeper than that. And part of what happens is these research reports come out in medical journals, the American Medical Association Journal, the Journal of Endocrinology, and they get picked up in taglines to the news media.
And they interpret the study, really.
Exactly. Or they have to fit it into a 30-second news blip on the 5 o'clock news. And so they just pull a headline. And they don't really look at all of the data and the devil's in the details.
Right.
And so when you start to look at the details, on the surface, it says if you have a higher level of fat or obesity, you'll have lesser hot flashes.
Right.
But the secondary cost of the obesity are certainly not worth it.
Yeah, I didn't even mention diabetes, and that's huge and rampant in the United States.
Yes.
And that goes way up after menopause because more estrone, more body fat, you keep gaining weight, there's no negative feedback there. So it's very hard to lose weight after menopause unless you replace both estradiol, the young woman's estrogen, and testosterone, which makes you leaner. So those two things help make you leaner and stop that process.
So another question, when we talk about obesity, and you're talking about estrone coming from or making more belly fat, are you talking about the development of fat tissue around the midriff or throughout the whole body? Is it dispersed? Is it somebody that's like they talk about somebody having a diabetic shape?
Right.
And you can say,
that's the estrone shape.
That's the estrone
Your
shape.
breasts get larger,
not
necessarily prettier, because usually that means they're lower. And your abdominal, your waist size goes up. And a lot of cardiology studies say that you should just don't measure your weight, but measure your waist. And they've given us some parameters on men. I don't think we have them quite on women about how big is too big. I think that depends on your frame, too. And I'm not sure it's been delineated about how tall you are and your middle.
And then you look at those things and they say, do you have a small frame, a medium frame, or a big frame? And it's always a judgment. You know, oh, well, I think I'm medium.
Yeah, no, we all say we're big bones so that we can look better on paper. But, you know, oh, I'm big bones so I look really good on that study. But in any case, this is really what they're talking about. And you get the headline and you think, oh, this is a good thing. Oh, yeah, I'm making belly fat and I have no hot flashes.
A friend of mine was over the other night, Friday night, and he was looking at me. We've both been in a competition to lose weight, and so we've been talking about.
Did you win?
So far, I'm way ahead. But he was saying that he had decided that the difference in our weight loss ratio was because I had a longer waist and he had a shorter waist.
Well, that doesn't play.
And I'm looking at him and he's wearing a horizontally striped shirt.
Yeah.
And I said, the trick is visual. You have to wear vertical stripes if you have a belly.
Yeah, of course. And all women know that. Stripes. Solid colors, vertical stripes, no cross stripes. But I want to touch on one other thing.
Yeah.
Do you remember the WHI study that said HRT was bad? It's going to cause all these terrible things.
Yes.
Well, this study was a bad study because it chose women who had never taken estrogen, and the biggest reason to take estrogen or an estradiol is because you have hot flashes. So the study picked women who had never taken hormones, so they had a much more obese study set than you would naturally find.
It was skewed by the sample,
right? Not
by the results,
right? The results were skewed by the sample, but it was set up that way, and the average age was 69 for starting estrogen. Now, most of us start estrogen in our late 40s or 50s, not after we've been collecting goo in our vessels since we were 49, because without estrogen, replacement, we collect plaque. And once we get estradiol going, the plaque dissolves. And sometimes that causes little flecks to go off to the brain, and sometimes it causes flecks to go off into the heart. So sometimes that's not a wise thing. But in this study, they had 80-year-olds starting. I mean, the average age was 69.
Right.
So they had 80-year-olds who have never taken estrogen before start taking estrogen.
You've also said in other venues that there's a 10-year window. Once those systems start to shut down naturally, there's a 10-year window where the replacement will work and keep those receptor sites open and active.
It will work later, but not very well.
Not as well. Okay.
So if you
for an
miss
80-year-old
10 years,
to start.
Yeah, I mean, in general, we don't start 80-year-olds on estrogen if they've never had estrogen before. So here's somebody with a lot of estrone who has a higher BMI and a higher chance of diabetes anyway, and we give them oral estrogen and Provera. And this is not like any other estrogen out there, and not like any other progesterone out there. It's specific to that, but we gave them one type, and then we condemned all of hormone replacement therapy based on one type of estrogen and based on a higher BMI and based on people who've never had a hot flash before they started this. Okay. So the study was constructed poorly, and I think it was probably constructed to fail.
Well, we're going to talk more about that in our next podcast because we want to focus on hormone replacement therapy and the news that is out about them. And so we want to wrap up what we're talking about with obesity. It is important that you understand, if you hear this news, that just because you have an extra amount of weight and therefore have lesser or fewer hot flashes, isn't necessarily a good thing. And what you really need to do is talk to your physician. Talk to your physician about your own individual health situation. And if you are menopausal, if you are having the hot flashes, and if you are obese, there are things that you need to consider. And one of those things might be hormone replacement therapy.
And weight loss.
And weight loss.
And exercise.
Well, they all, but one hand washes the other. They build on one another towards a success factor. So if you have questions about what we're talking about today or about any of the podcasts that we have out, you can contact us. You can email us at podcast@biobalancehealth.com. You can contact me at my website, brettnewcomb.com.
And if you want more information about bioidentical hormone pellets, visit our website, biobalancehealth.com, or call us at 314-993-0963.